welcome back to another video. Today we're going to take a look at the comic books I picked up this week for New Comic Book Day, November 6th. I only have, let's see, I have 4 single issues. I only read 3 of them, but there's a reason why I haven't read that 4th one yet, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we'll start off with DuckTales. It's a new series from Dynamite. It's an all ages title. Written by Brandon Montclair, and art is by Tommaso Ronda. Neither that I'm very familiar with. It's interesting because so Dynamite has while Marvel has the rights to like the Disney stuff. Dynamite has been able to kind of license some of the other Disney properties like was it Darkwing Duck, DuckTales. So this is strictly based on the cartoon. It's based which is which is also the cartoon is based off the stories of Carl Barks and Don Rosa and all those really great adventure stories that are super popular. So DuckTales is kind of based off of that, but is also its own thing. So this is, I think, how DuckTales is able to be licensed separately than, earlier this year, a couple months ago, they did the Scrooge and the Infinity Dime, I think that's what it's called. And that was written by Jason Aaron. And that I did really enjoy. I enjoyed that story. I felt it was a good nod to without being a direct like recreation or it felt more in line with the grand adventures of the Carl Barks and more specifically Don Rosa, because the Don Rosa are the stories that I've read a lot more of. I've only read a few Carl Barks stories, but of course Don Rosa's work was based off of what Carl Barks had established. But I've read all of Don Rosa's work and really enjoy those stories. And So going into this, I think it's important to know that what I love about Scrooge and the DuckTales brand, I guess, is more what it's based on, not necessarily DuckTales itself. And now I enjoyed the cartoon when it was on. I definitely watched it. I liked it. So this is based on the cartoon, and it's very hard because it's an all ages book. And what I should have done is I should have just given this to my 7-year-old daughter and let her read it and see what she thought of it. She has no real, I don't know that it would be fair because she really doesn't have any knowledge of these versions of the characters. So anyway, so my thoughts on it. I found it a little frustrating, actually. And again, this could be just because it's an all-ages book and I am a 45-year-old man. But I like that they're doing this. I like that they have a DuckTales comic. I like that this is an option to introduce these characters in a comic format. I think that's good. Now, there are nods to Carl Barks, Don Rosa, their stories. There are pages in this book that homage the kind of the visual layout and the stylings of the Carl Barks stories. So it's definitely they're definitely aware of the source material when they're creating this comic. But I found it to be what I love about the Don Rosa stuff is that they're these great big adventures, and it essentially is. It treats the ducks as they're not ducks. They're just human characters. They're just it's the fact that they look like ducks. That's fine, but it's not based on the fact that they are ducks. If that makes any sense. So those stories read like Indiana Jones adventures or say like a National Treasure. Those movies. Those read like a big adventure that are rooted in history. And Don Rosa's stories are just filled with accurate information, and then he creates these stories around those things and references real events, real history, maybe artifacts. So the story starts out with the boys are in the vault, the money bin, and they're counting Uncle Scrooge's. They've been tasked to count his money, and then he kind of comes in, and they want to find out, how did he get this money? Some adventures, and there's just this big. It just takes a while to develop. Like there's gags, and it's good. And again, maybe this hits better for a younger audience. I hope it does. But it just takes a while to develop, and Scrooge is, they want to know more about his adventures. He says, "Okay, follow me. Let's go home." And then they get home, and he's like, "All right, leave me alone." So it just it's like kind of frustrating to read it. Um, and then when they finally he does tell a story about one of the artifacts. Like I said, it looks like a Carl Barks story, and it's 2 pages long, and it's not a particularly great adventure. Like it just kind of like he kind of lucks into getting this artifact, and then I was expecting that to be, the boys to hear the story, and then that to be like, that's it, that's all the story. But in the comic, they loved it. They loved hearing that story, and it was only like kind of a brief summary of that adventure. And coming from the works of Don Rosa, each like that issue would be like a 20 to 30 page adventure, and that's what it was all about. And this is not that. So I don't know if this is just setting up, because there's a couple examples in this issue of different adventures and different nods to Carl Barks stories. So, or like the art of Carl Barks. So they visually kind of have that layout, and there's, I think, 3 or 4 examples of those short snippets of flashback stories, and I don't know if that's just to set up to set up the world and to show that Scrooge has had these adventures. But then it kind of ends with, there's all these adventures that he's been on across the world, but there's a lot of adventures that are just to be found in Duckburg. And I think that's the first arc is going to be just some adventures set solely in Duckburg, which I don't have a problem with that. That's fine. It's just, again, and am I being unfair to an all ages comic book? I mean, I might be, and that's not, that's probably not fair. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the visual, the art in it. I enjoyed. It's just it's not the things that I want from like an Uncle Scrooge story, and we'll see. I mean, I'll buy the second issue. It's not like I'm just like, this is, what I do plan on giving it to my daughter, see what she says, and to kind of get that feedback. I think would be kind of cool, because I might not be the target audience for this all ages book. However, that said, the Don Rosa stories, those are all ages, and there's just a lot more meat on the bone when it comes to the story. I mean, they are those stories are educational as well, and that's what I really like about those. And I didn't find that in this. It just seemed, yes, it's for all ages, but it's not. It just seemed not as in depth of a story. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'll get the second issue, and then we'll take it from there. All right. So next up, I have Skin Police issue 2. This is written by Jordan Thomas, and art is by Daniel. It's Gete. Geet. I don't know. All right. So this is it's published by Oni Press, and it's essentially it's very very Blade Runner-esque setup. But instead of replicants and androids, you're talking about clones. And there was a fertility pandemic. People weren't able to get pregnant, so they kind of went and they had clones made, and then they raised the clone as their child. And now there's the premise is that they have these I think they're called duplicates. So the duplicates have the chance of they call it popping, which means they kind of lose their mind, and then they go crazy, and they become very murderous and very dangerous. So there is, it's set in Europe, and Europe has established this. It's called the Skin Police. They're the ones who go and hunt down these duplicates and eliminate them. But what that does is the symptoms of a duplicate about to pop is that it's anxiety, and they which doesn't really help, because some people just get anxious and they have anxiety and they think, oh my god, I'm a duplicate, and then they that causes, there's people who they talked about that they kill themselves, they commit suicide because they think that they are one of these duplicates and they fear popping. So it's deeper than it initially seems, but this issue sets up the fact that there is a duplicate resistance. Now there's a character who she suspected of being a duplicate, and the skin police are after her after the first issue, and she finds herself now introduced to the duplicate resistance, and they're there to fight back against the skin police, and they are there to they have medication. There's medication that they way to treat the duplicates, so even after they pop, they are able to not they're able to prevent them from going crazy. So yeah, this is I enjoy this. It's a good premise, while not entirely original, because I can describe it, a lot of it based on in terms of Blade Runner. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoy the art in this. It has a fun style. There's a lot of action in this this book. So yeah, this was a good find. I mean, I enjoyed this so far. I think it's an ongoing. It doesn't. I didn't do the research on it. Even after the last time I read issue 1, I wasn't sure. I still haven't done the research on it, but nothing in this says, to me, says miniseries. So I'm assuming that it is an ongoing series, and I'm enjoying it. So that is a one that I will keep reading, and it's now officially on the pull list. So, all right. Now, the next one is probably the big release of the week, and it's Absolute Superman. Now, this is written by Jason Aaron, art by Rafa Sandoval, and it's part of the Absolute, the 3 Absolute titles that have come out so far. There was Batman, Wonder Woman, and now Superman. And I enjoy the art in this. I think it's a good fit. I enjoy the ideas that are presented in this. First off, this is a lot more Krypton heavy than it is Kal-El heavy. There's scenes set on Earth. You are introduced to this version of Kal-El, but a lot of it sets up what life on Krypton was, and it changes that kind of drastically. So, traditionally, Superman's parents, Jor-El, and he was one of the the upper echelon scientists, and he had the ear of the councils and everyone who was in charge, and so he was a well-respected individual. In this version, they are not. Like, his parents are in the working class, and the shields that they wear on their chest indicate the house that they're from, but also the class system, and their symbol is like the working class, and they are in coal miners, or not coal miners, but miners. It's not coal on Krypton, but they're miners and laborers. They're part of the labor guild. That's what it says. The bottommost rung of that ladder toiled the labor guild, and that's what they're part of. And so they're not respected individuals. So Kal-El did not come from royalty, if you will. It did not come from a privileged family. But in the past, the setup was that Superman was sent away as a baby, and didn't really have memory of Krypton. So it's kind of again kind of like a nature nurture thing. But in this instance, he on Krypton, he the scenes that are set on Krypton, you see it's towards the end of the issue. But I think it sets up a kind of important difference. and it is the fact that Kal-El is still alive. When Krypton is, there are signs that things are happening to Krypton, that it's in danger. But Kal-El is a little boy, so it's coming from it changes his approach to why he probably wants to protect Earth, because he's seen this happen before. He's seen the destruction of a planet in Krypton. So there is more of it's kind of like on the nose. Like he has seen the effects, so he wants to prevent those effects instead of just learning through like the fortress and through the crystals and through learning about Krypton through the history of it and not firsthand account of it. So yeah, I think it's a strong setup. If I were to rank the three, I still think the more that I read of Wonder Woman and Superman, I come to appreciate more what was done with Absolute Batman. Now, Absolute Batman, it was, I think, lighter on story, but it nailed the tone of what that book was, and I think that was very effective to kind of hook you in. And there was a lot of story in Superman, and which I think is good. That's not bad, but there's a lot of questions still. Absolute Batman kind of told you who Bruce was in that book. There's still more questions there, but I feel like it kind of defined Bruce's role a lot more than this defines Kal-El, Superman's role on Earth. There's still a lot more questions, but I thought it was a good start. I feel like I would probably continue getting this one. I'll get Batman, and I think this one. I think Wonder Woman I'm gonna hold off on. The more time I sat with it, I enjoyed it, but I didn't immediately have more questions. So and in here, I think by leaving some of those questions unanswered, it makes me want to find out more. So that seems to have worked. So the approach, while not necessarily what I would choose, I would want to know more in the first issue, but I do think that it was the deliberate approach to set up Krypton, the society of Krypton more, was what took precedence, and I can see that was appreciated. I did enjoy the stuff that was set on Krypton. It just felt like this was more of a Krypton book than it was a Superman book. So, but yeah, well, I'll give this one a chance. Issue 2, see where it goes from there. There are different, much like in Batman, where Alfred played a different role. In this, Lois Lane makes an appearance. She plays a different role. She's not a journalist, at least not yet. So there are things that were changed for sure, even in the supporting cast. But yeah, I will give it a chance for issue 2. So yeah, that's Absolute Superman. And so then the other issue I picked up, it's a series that I've been wanting to read more of. I've read the first trade of the series, but so the first trade was issues 1 through 6, and then issue 7 my shop didn't have, and so I just kind of skipped things. But that is Void Rivals. Void Rivals Volume 2 is now out, and this is the other title in the Energon universe. There's Transformers, G.I. Joe, and then Void Rivals, which is the original property written by Robert Kirkman. Art is by Lorenzo De Felici. And this is the more set out in space, sci-fi, new kind of sci-fi series with elements of Transformers, Energon. That's all in there. So the first volume I read, I did enjoy it. And the second volume, I know it has more connections to Transformers. The first issue had an appearance by Jetfire, then he kind of leaves, and that's kind of it. Besides some minor supporting characters. But I know that there's a lot more. There's more Cybertronians in the second volume. So this is issues 7 through 12, and then I also picked up issue 13, which introduces some Cobra La aspects out into space, which you see at the end of the Cobra Commander miniseries. Pythona sets off into space to try to understand more about Cybertron. So I haven't read. I started reading the trade. I think I've read. I think issue 7 so far, and yeah, I again really cool. I've been looking forward to really kind of catching up on this. Issue 13 is the newest issue, so that's why I figured get caught up with 7 through 12, and then I'll start buying the single issues in Void Rivals. So yeah, and Energon stuff. That's been having a lot of fun. So really looking forward to finishing off this. Just didn't have time to read all of it yet. So all right, that's all I picked up this week. Next week is a big one. Next week is you have Transformers issue 14, and then you have G.I. Joe issue 1. So that's all of the 4 lead up miniseries, and Duke, Cobra Commander, Scarlet, and Destro are all kind of leading to G.I. Joe number 1. And from what I understand, now it's just going to be those 3 titles ongoing. So Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Void Rivals. So there's not a lot of titles. I'm sure eventually there will be, they'll introduce more characters. I'm sure they'll do another miniseries eventually. But for I think at least the second year, it's going to be those 3 titles are going to be what the Energon universe is. So it's not. At this point, you could get some trades to catch up on the first year of stuff, and then moving forward, if it's only 3 titles, that's pretty solid. That's a good, not a huge buy-in to experience the big story that is being told. So definitely looking forward to like I said, catching up on Void Rivals, and then man, G.I. Joe, my boy Tom Riley. I very excited. So anyway. Thank you very much for watching this one, and I will see you soon.